The night my family turned against me did not start like a disaster. It started like any other quiet evening in our small house. The television was on in the living room, playing one of those late-night talk shows. The kitchen smelled like dish soap and fried chicken from dinner. A soft yellow light covered the dining table, where I was folding a few clean dish towels, one by one. Outside, the world was calm. The street was quiet. A light wind touched the trees in front of the house. If someone had walked by and looked through our window, they would have seen a normal home. A normal family. Nothing special. Nothing broken. But inside my chest, something felt heavy. Something had felt heavy for months. My name is Margaret. I am a mother, a grandmother, and a woman who always believed that if you gave love, you would receive love back. Maybe not in the same way. Maybe not quickly. But eventually. That night, sitting alone at the table, I stared at the family photos on the wall. My son, David, smiling in his graduation robe. My daughter, Melissa, holding her first baby. My husband, Robert, standing beside me at the beach, both of us younger, healthier, hopeful. And then there was Emily, my daughter-in-law, holding my grandson, Ethan, in her arms. I used to look at those pictures and feel proud. That night, they made my eyes sting. Because I knew something was wrong. I knew Emily avoided me now. I knew David spoke to me less and less. I knew Melissa only called when she needed something. And Robert, well, Robert had learned to stay silent, to avoid picking sides. I could feel a wall growing between me and the people I loved most. But I kept telling myself, it is just a phase. Families go through hard times. It will get better. I did not know that before the night ended, I would hear words I could never unhear. I did not know I would stand in the hallway with my hands shaking while my own son looked at me like I was a burden. I did not know my daughter-in-law would say, with a cold, clear voice, "Maybe it is time for you to leave, Margaret." And I did not know that instead of crying, instead of screaming, would do something else. I would smile. A small, broken smile. Because in that moment, I finally understood something. You can give your whole life to your family and still end up standing alone in the doorway, holding a small suitcase and trying not to fall apart. This is the story of how my family turned against me. How I became helpless. And how, somehow, in the quiet after the storm, I found a different kind of strength. To understand that night, you have to know what came before it. You have to know the years that seemed simple and full of love. I was born and raised in Ohio. My parents were simple people. My father worked in a small factory. My mother stayed home, cooked, and took care of us. We did not have much money, but we had routines. We had Sunday dinners. We had birthdays with homemade cakes. We had hugs and quiet apologies and long talks at the kitchen table. When I married Robert, I wanted that same kind of home. Not big. Not fancy. Just steady. We were married young. I was 22. He was 24. We rented a small apartment at first. I worked part-time at a grocery store. He did construction work. We saved every dollar we could. We burned dinners. We laughed a lot. We argued about stupid things like which way the toilet paper should roll. But we loved each other. Then, a few years later, our son, David, was born. I still remember the first time I held him. His cheeks were pink. His tiny hand grabbed my finger like he never wanted to let go. I whispered, "I will always be here for you. I promise." 3 years after that, our daughter, Melissa, came into the world. She was smaller, more fragile, but with big, curious eyes. David became protective right away. He would stand near her crib and say, "That's my sister," in a serious voice, as if he were 40 years old, not 3. Raising them was not easy, but it gave my life meaning. Our house was always noisy. Toys on the floor. Lunch boxes on the counter. Crayons stuck in the couch cushions. I would wake up early, pack lunches, brush little heads of hair, tie shoes, sign school forms, and then go to work. Robert worked hard too. Sometimes he was quiet and tired. Sometimes he would come home with dust on his clothes and stiffness in his back, but when the kids ran to him, his whole face lit up. We were not perfect. We had bills, arguments, and moments of fear when money was tight or someone got sick. But we were together. We were a family. As the kids grew, I watched their personalities bloom. David was calm, thoughtful, smart. He liked building things with his hands. He would sit at the kitchen table with Lego pieces and little tools, making tiny cars or houses. When something broke around the house, he would say, "Let me see, Mom. Maybe I can fix it." Melissa was more emotional, more expressive. She loved music. She would sing around the house, even when she did not know all the words. She argued more. She cried louder. But she also loved deeply. When I was sad, she always noticed first. "Mom, are you okay?" she would ask, touching my arm. For many years, I was the center of the house. The planner. The cook. The cleaner. The listener. The comforter. If someone was sick, they called, "Mom." If someone was scared, they called, "Mom." If someone needed advice, they called, "Mom." I did not think of it as sacrifice. I thought of it as love. Time passed. Kids grew up. David went to college, the first in our family to do that. I cried when we dropped him off at the campus. Not because I was sad to see him go, but because I was proud. Melissa took a different path. She did not like school as much, but she worked, moved out with a friend, then later had a baby of her own. Life kept changing. Family pictures on the wall grew in numbers. New faces appeared, boyfriends, girlfriends, new baby grandchildren. And then, one Thanksgiving weekend, David brought home a girl. Her name was Emily. She had straight brown hair, pretty green eyes, and a careful smile. She wore a simple sweater and jeans. Nothing fancy. But she carried herself in a way that made her look grown up and sure of herself. I remember the first time she walked into our kitchen. I was stirring gravy. She stepped forward and said, "Hi, Mrs. Turner. I'm Emily. Thank you for having me." Her voice was polite, warm, but there was a distance there too. Like she had built a small invisible wall around herself and was watching everything from behind it. I shook her hand and smiled. "Please, call me Margaret," I said. "You're welcome here." Emily and David sat at the table, side by side. He looked at her in a way he had never looked at anyone before. Soft. Protective. In love. I watched them talk. I listened to her stories about her job in marketing, her apartment, her parents who lived a few states away. She was smart, driven, and well-spoken. I tried to make her feel comfortable. I passed the mashed potatoes her way first. I asked small, gentle questions. "So, Emily, what's your favorite thing to cook?" She laughed and said, "I'm more of a takeout person. I burn toast." We all laughed. It was a good night. A peaceful night. Later, when Emily and David left, I stood at the window and watched them walk to the car. Emily linked her arm through his. He opened the passenger door for her. She smiled at him and touched his shoulder. Robert came to stand beside me. "What do you think?" he asked. I watched their silhouettes in the driveway. "She seems nice," I said. "Independent. Confident." "You don't like that?" he asked. I shook my head. No, I do. I hope she lets David be himself too. He did not answer. He just put his arm gently around my shoulders. I did not know then that this girl would one day ask me to leave the home I thought I would grow old in. I did not know that tiny moments, a look, a misunderstood word, a missed phone call, would slowly become heavy stones between us. Back then, everything still felt fixable. Everything still felt like family. The first cracks were small. So small that if you looked at them alone, you might say, that is nothing. You are overthinking. Maybe I was overthinking at first. But small cracks, over time, can turn into broken walls. After a year of dating, David told us he was going to propose to Emily. He was so nervous when he told me. Mom, he said, I want to ask Emily to marry me. What do you think? We were in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter. I was rinsing dishes. I dried my hands and looked at him. I think if you love her, and she loves you, then I'm happy for you, I said. His shoulders relaxed. He smiled, that same boyish smile I remembered from his childhood. Thanks, Mom, he said. I really wanted your blessing. My heart warmed at those words. My blessing. It still mattered to him. They got married in a small church. Emily wore a simple white dress. Her father walked her down the aisle. Her mother cried quietly in the second row. David stood at the front, straightening his tie, trying not to cry. When the ceremony was over, they kissed, and people clapped and cheered. We took photos outside the church. The sky was blue. The air was cool. It felt like a new beginning. But even on that day, I noticed small things. When we took the big family photo, Emily's mother stood close beside her, with a firm hand on her shoulder. Emily's father stood on her other side. David was there too, but when I tried to stand a little closer to them, Emily's mother gently shifted, making a small wall between us in the picture. It was not rude. It was not open hostility. But I felt it. That small movement. That subtle message, she is our daughter first. I told myself not to be sensitive. I smiled. I stood where there was space. After the wedding, David and Emily moved into a small house about 20 minutes away from us. Close enough to visit. Far enough to live their own life. It felt reasonable. At first, everything was polite and warm. I would call and ask, do you guys want to come for dinner on Sunday? Sometimes they said yes. Sometimes they said, maybe next week, we're busy. When they came, I tried not to overdo it. I cooked their favorite meals. I asked Emily about her job. I bought her a small plant once and said, for your kitchen window. She smiled and thanked me. But there was still that sense of distance. Like everything was being measured. One evening, after they had gone home, Robert said quietly. I think Emily feels like you watch her. I frowned. Watch her. He shrugged. Like maybe she feels judged. You know how you are, honey. You see everything. I felt a sting in my chest. I am not judging her, I said softly. I am just trying to know her. He placed his hand over mine. I know, he said. You care. But maybe just, give it time. So I stepped back more. I waited for them to call instead of calling them. I tried to show that I respected their space. Time passed. Then came the news that would change everything. Mom, David said over the phone one afternoon, we're pregnant. I still remember where I was. Sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking out at the backyard. I gasped, and my eyes filled with tears. Oh, David, I said. That's wonderful. I am so happy for you both. Becoming a grandmother again felt like a miracle. I imagined tiny clothes, bedtime stories, little hands reaching up for me. But this time, something was different. When Melissa had her daughter, I was deeply involved. I stayed with her for a week. I cooked. I cleaned. I held the baby so she could sleep. This time, with Emily, things did not go the same way. During the pregnancy, I called to ask Emily how she was feeling. "Hi, sweetie, how are you doing today?" "I'm okay," she would say. "Just tired. Do you need anything? I can bring food, or help clean, or..." "Oh, no, no. We're fine, Margaret. My mom is coming next weekend. She's bringing some things." Her mother. Always her mother. I understood. A woman is close to her own mother. That is natural. But I started to feel like there was no place for me in their new life. Still, I tried to stay gentle. "I do not want to be in the way," I would say. "But I am here if you need me. For anything." "Thank you," she would answer. "We appreciate it." But the calls came less. The invitations became fewer. When Ethan was finally born, I saw him for the first time in the hospital room. He was small and beautiful. His eyes were closed. His skin was red and wrinkled. I walked toward Emily's bed with flowers in my hands. She looked tired, pale, and quiet. "Hi, Emily," I said softly. "You did good. He's beautiful." "Thank you," she whispered. I looked at David, who stood proudly beside the bed. "Can I hold him?" I asked. There was a small pause. David looked at Emily. Emily hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. "Just for a minute," she said. "He just fed." I tried not to let her tone hurt me. I washed my hands carefully, then held Ethan in my arms. My heart melted. "Hi, little one," I whispered. "I am your Grandma Margaret." I kissed his forehead lightly. I wanted to stay there forever. But a minute later, Emily said, "Can I have him back? I'm just anxious about germs." I nodded, smiled, and gave him back gently. "I understand," I said. "Of course." From the outside, maybe it all looked normal. A careful new mother. A polite mother-in-law. But inside, I felt something shifting. I felt like a guest in my son's new life. Over the next year, these small moments kept growing. Sometimes I would stop by their house with food. "I made some chicken soup," I would say at the door. "Thought you might want a break from cooking." Emily would open the door, look at the container, then at me. "Thank you," she said. "You really don't have to do all this." Her words sounded kind, but the way she said them made me feel like I had crossed a line. Once, I picked up a small toy from the floor and said, "I used to do this all the time when you were little, David." Emily answered, "Well, we have our own way of doing things." I stayed quiet. I told myself, she is tired. She is stressed. Another time, at a family dinner, Melissa said loudly, "Mom always has an opinion about everything." She laughed as she said it, but it was sharp. Emily laughed a little too, then said, "Well, at least she cares." I smiled weakly. The table went quiet for a moment. Later that night, as I washed dishes at my own sink, I heard their voices in my head, repeating those words. Opinion about everything. You do not have to do all this. I started to ask myself questions. Am I doing too much? Am I being annoying? Am I in the way? I tried to change. I tried to be smaller, quieter, less present. But in doing that, I also became lonelier. The real trouble started when I lost my job. I had been working part-time at a small store. It helped with the bills and kept me busy. But one day, the store closed. The owner could not keep it open. I was older. It was hard to find new work. My back hurt more now. My energy was less. Money became tight. Bills didn't care about age or effort. They just came. At the same time, Robert's health started to decline. His knees hurt. He had trouble walking long distances. He needed medicine. Doctor visits. Tests. Suddenly, our home felt heavy with worry. One evening, sitting at the kitchen table, I looked at the stack of bills and felt my chest tighten. Tears came without warning. Robert sat across from me, rubbing his knees. "We will figure it out," he said softly. "How?" I asked. "I cannot work like I used to." "You are not well. We are behind on the mortgage. The house is too much for us alone." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said the words that would start the final chain of events. "Maybe we should ask David and Emily if we can stay with them for a while. Just until we get back on our feet." I stared at him, shocked. "Move in with them?" "Not forever," he said. "Just for a bit. It would help with the bills. And we could help them with Ethan. Babysitting, cleaning, cooking. It could be good for everyone." I looked up at the photos on the wall again. My family. My children. My grandchildren. I thought, surely they would not let us sink. Surely family means something. I took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "We will ask." I did not know then that this decision, born from fear and hope, would lead to the night when my family turned against me. We did not ask in person. Maybe that was the first mistake. Robert's knees were worse that week, and I felt ashamed. I did not want to sit on their couch and say out loud, "We cannot make it on our own." So I called David instead. "Hey, Mom," he answered, his voice casual. "Everything okay?" I swallowed, my throat dry. "Hey, honey. Do you have a minute to talk?" "Yeah. What's going on?" I looked at the unpaid bills on the table. I looked at the worn-out floor under my feet. "Things have been hard lately," I said slowly. "The store closed. Your dad's health, you know. The house is a lot. We were wondering if maybe, just for a while, we could stay with you and Emily. We could help with Ethan. We would pay what we can for bills. Just until we figure things out." There was a long silence on the other end. "David?" I said. "Yeah, I'm here," he replied. His voice sounded tighter now. I don't know, Mom. That's a big thing. I have to talk to Emily." "Of course," I said quickly. "Of course. I understand. We do not want to cause trouble. We are trying to find options." "I'll talk to her," he said. "And I'll call you back, okay?" "Okay," I said. "Thank you, honey." After I hung up, I sat still for a long time. My hands were shaking. Robert looked at me from his chair. "How did he sound?" he asked. "Nervous," I said honestly. But he said he would talk to Emily. For the next 2 days, I waited by the phone. Every time it rang, my heart jumped. When David finally called back, I was in the kitchen again. "Hey, Mom," he said. "We talked." "And?" I asked, my voice small. He took a deep breath. "Emily is concerned," he said. "The house is small. We only have one extra room. She works from home sometimes. She needs quiet. And Ethan, his routine is very specific. She thinks having more people in the house might be stressful. I listened, pressing the phone to my ear. Each word felt like a small cold stone. I understand that, I said quietly. We do not want to cause stress. We would help. We would try to be invisible. I know, Mom, he said. I told her that. But she is really anxious about it. There was a long pause. Then he added, almost in a whisper. She said she is not comfortable with you moving in. I closed my eyes. The words sank in slowly. Not comfortable, I repeated. I'm sorry, David said. I really am. Maybe we can help with money somehow. Maybe you can sell the house. Or move into a smaller place. Sell the house. The house where I raised him. The house full of memories and pictures and small marks on the doorframe where we used to measure his height. I felt something in my chest break a little. I see, I said. Thank you for telling me. He hesitated. Mom, please don't be mad at Emily. She needs her space. You know how she is. I am not mad, I said. And at that moment, it was true. I was not mad. I was just hollow. Okay, he said, sounding relieved. We'll figure something out. I promise. We hung up. For the next few weeks, things became blurrier. We tried to sell the house, but the market was bad. We had trouble finding a buyer. My savings shrank. Robert's medical costs grew. One night, after another long day of calls and worries, I sat on the edge of my bed and whispered, God, please help us. I do not know what to do anymore. Soon after, an idea came from David again. Mom, he said, Emily and I talked more. Maybe you can stay with us for a short while. Just you. Dad can stay in the house for now. We'll help him with some money. But Emily thinks it will be too hard with both of you here. Just me. Not us. I felt torn in half. How can I leave your father alone? I asked. It's temporary, David said. Just until we figure the house out. You can help us with Ethan, and we can help with some of the bills. Emily is still nervous, but she is willing to try. I did not like it. It felt wrong to leave Robert. But he was the one who said, Go, Margaret. It is okay. I will manage. It is just for a while. At least one of us will be safe and stable. And you can keep an eye on Ethan. So I agreed. I packed a small suitcase with clothes, my medications, and a few framed photos. I told myself, it is only for a short time. The night I moved into David and Emily's house, it was raining. Soft, steady rain. Emily opened the door. She stepped aside to let me in. Hi, Margaret, she said. Her voice was polite but not warm. Come in. Thank you, Emily, I replied, forcing a smile. I carried my suitcase into the hallway. Behind her, I saw Ethan sitting on the living room floor with a small toy car in his hand. Grandma, he cried when he saw me. He ran over and hugged my legs. My heart melted. I bent down and hugged him back. Hi, sweet boy, I whispered. David took my suitcase and carried it to the small guest room. This is your room, Mom, he said. It is not big, but I hope it's okay. It is perfect, I said. Inside, there was a bed, a small dresser, and a window that looked out at the side of the house. It was simple. I was grateful. The first few days were quiet. I woke up early, helped make breakfast, cleaned dishes, and watched Ethan when Emily needed to work. I tried to be light, invisible, easy. I folded my own laundry. I kept my things in my room. I asked before touching anything in the kitchen. But there were small comments. Small sighs. Small moments where Emily's face tightened at something I said or did. Once, I gave Ethan a small cookie after lunch. "Here you go, sweetie," I said. Emily walked in, saw him eating it, and froze. "Who gave him that?" she asked. "I did," I said gently. "Just one. After lunch." She took a slow breath. "We are trying to limit sugar," she said. "We talked about that." "I am sorry," I replied. "I forgot. It will not happen again." She did not yell. She did not insult me. But the way she looked at me made me feel like a child who had done something terrible. Another time, I loaded the dishwasher. Emily came home, opened it, stared at the dishes, and then began to rearrange them. "We usually put the plates on the bottom and the cups on the top," she said. "Oh," I said. "I see. I did not know. I am sorry. It is just easier this way," she said. I stood there, feeling foolish. One evening, I heard her talking to David in their bedroom. The door was half closed, but their voices carried down the hallway. "I feel like I cannot breathe in my own house," Emily said. "Your mom is everywhere." "She is just trying to help," David replied. "I know, but I feel watched. Judged. Like everything I do is wrong compared to how she did it. I cannot relax." I stood there in the dark hallway, holding a folded towel, my heart pounding. I had not meant to listen. I had just been passing by. But once I heard my name, I could not move. "She is going through a lot," David said. "The house, Dad's health, she needs us." "I understand that," Emily replied. "But what about us? What about our space? Our marriage? I did not sign up to live with your mother." There was a long pause. Then David said, more quietly, "It is temporary." I walked back to my room quietly and closed the door. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. "I am a burden," I whispered to myself. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, making sure no one heard me. The real breaking point came a few weeks later. It was a Friday night. The house was tense. Emily had had a hard week at work. Ethan had been fussy all day. David came home late, tired and distracted. I had cooked dinner, chicken, vegetables, and mashed potatoes. We sat at the table in silence at first. Forks scraped plates. Ethan dropped peas on the floor and giggled. I tried to make small talk. "How was work, Emily?" I asked gently. She sighed. "Busy," she said shortly. "Exhausting." "I am sorry," I replied. "I know how that feels." She did not answer. Ethan picked up his cup of juice and accidentally spilled a little on the table. "Oh," I said softly, reaching for a napkin. "It is okay, sweetie." I wiped it up. Emily stood up quickly, grabbed more paper towels, and wiped the table again, harder. "Ethan, you need to be more careful," she said sharply. He looked down, his little lips turning down. "Sorry, Mommy," he whispered. Something inside me ached. "Oh, he is just a child," I said gently. "Spills happen. It is not a big." Emily turned to me. Her eyes were tired, red from stress, but there was also anger there. "Margaret," she said, "please do not tell me how to talk to my son." The room went silent. David looked from her to me, trapped. My heart dropped. I did not mean. I stuttered. She shook her head. "I am so tired of feeling judged in my own home," she said. "Every time I say something, you correct me. Every time I do something, you have a different way. I cannot do this anymore. Emily, David said softly, calm down. She turned to him. No, I am serious, she said. I feel like I am walking on eggshells. This is not what we agreed to, David. I stared at my plate. The food tasted like nothing now. I am sorry, I whispered. I really am. I will be more careful with my words. I do not want to cause trouble. She laughed quietly, but it was not a happy sound. It is not about being careful with your words, Margaret. It is about you being here. All the time. This is not working for me. My hands began to shake. David looked pale. Emily, please, he said. We will talk later. No, she replied firmly. We will talk now. Because I am at my limit. She took a deep breath, then looked straight at me. Maybe it is time for you to leave, she said. The words hung in the air. It was like the whole house went silent. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. I could hear Ethan's small breath. I could hear my own heart beating in my ears. I looked at David. He stared at his plate, not meeting my eyes. I have nowhere to go, I said softly. You have a house, Emily replied. A house we are trying to sell, I said. A house we cannot afford. Your father, he needs me. She crossed her arms. I am sorry, she said, but her voice did not sound sorry. I cannot live like this anymore. I feel trapped. I feel like I am losing myself. This is my home. I should feel safe here. David finally looked up at me. There was pain in his eyes, but also something else. Fear. Guilt. Conflict. Mom, he said slowly, maybe we should take a break from this arrangement. Maybe it is too much for everyone. My own son. The boy whose hand I held when he crossed the street. The teenager I had stayed up waiting for when he was late. The man I had hugged at his wedding. He could not even look at me for long. Something inside me went very quiet. I felt like I could either fall apart in that moment or hold myself together with the only thing I had left, dignity. So I did something I did not expect. I smiled. It was a small, shaky smile. My lips trembled. My eyes filled with tears. But I smiled. You are right, I said softly. This is your home. You deserve to feel at peace in it. Mom, David began. I raised my hand just a little. It is okay, I said. I hear you. Both of you. I stood up slowly from the table. My legs felt weak, but I forced them to move. I will pack my things, I said. I walked to my room, closed the door gently, and leaned against it for a long moment, shaking. Then I took my small suitcase out of the closet. I placed my clothes inside, one by one. My framed photo of Robert and me at the beach. A picture of baby David. A folded sweater that my mother had once knit for me. As I packed, tears rolled down my cheeks. I did not make any sound. I did not want them to hear. When I was done, I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and opened the door. I walked back into the living room, holding the suitcase handle. Ethan stood there, holding his toy car, looking confused. Grandma, where are you going? He asked. I knelt down, my heart breaking. I have to go home, sweetie, I said gently. But I love you. So much. He frowned. Did I do something wrong? I felt a stab of pain so deep it almost took my breath away. No, I said quickly, shaking my head. You did nothing wrong. You are perfect. This is just grown-up stuff. I hugged him tightly, kissing his hair, breathing him in. When I stood up, David was by the door, holding his car keys. "I will drive you," he said quietly. Emily stood farther back, arms folded, eyes shiny with unshed tears. "I am sorry," she said again. "I really am." I looked at her. In that moment, I did not see a villain. I saw a young woman who felt overwhelmed, scared, protective of her life. Maybe we were both hurting in different ways. "I hope someday you understand," I said softly. "I only ever wanted to help." We walked out into the night. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. Streetlights reflected in small puddles. As I stepped into the car, I looked back at the house where I had tried so hard to be useful. To be helpful. To be needed. And I felt empty. Helpless. The drive back to my old house was mostly silent. David kept his eyes on the road. His hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly. I looked out the window at the dark streets, the passing lights, the blurry shapes of trees. Finally, he spoke. "Mom, I am sorry," he said. "This is not how I wanted things to go." I nodded slowly. "I know," I replied. "I love you," he added. "I love you too, David," I said. "I always will." We parked in front of the house. It looked tired, like us. The paint was peeling in some places. The lawn needed cutting. He carried my suitcase inside. Robert was in his armchair in the living room, watching the news. When he saw us, he turned down the volume. "You are back early," he said carefully. I set my suitcase down and gave him a small smile. "Yes," I said. "Plans changed." He looked from my face to David's, reading the situation without words. "I will give you two a moment," David said. He put the suitcase by the bedroom door. "I will call you tomorrow, okay?" "Okay," I said. He hugged me. It felt weaker than before. Maybe that was my imagination. Maybe it was real. Then he left. When the door closed behind him, the silence in the house felt huge. Robert looked at me. "What happened?" he asked. I sat down on the couch across from him, my shoulders heavy. "It was too much for Emily," I said quietly. She felt like she had no space. Like she was being judged. She asked me to leave. Robert's face tightened. "She asked you to leave?" "Yes," I replied. In front of David. He shook his head slowly. "And what did he say?" I swallowed. "He said maybe this arrangement was too much for everyone." Robert closed his eyes for a moment. I could see the hurt on his face, the anger he was trying to control. "I am sorry," I said. I thought being there would help us. Help them. It did not." He opened his eyes again, looked at me, and said, "This is not your fault, Margaret." "I feel like it is," I said. "Maybe I talked too much. Maybe I tried to help too often. Maybe I did not know how to be small enough." He shook his head again. "You have spent your whole life taking care of people," he said. "It is not a crime to care. It is not a crime to need help." But I still felt guilty. I still felt like a burden. In the weeks that followed, I sank into a quiet sadness. We tried again to sell the house. A few people came to see it. No one made an offer. I spent long hours alone in the living room, sitting in my chair, listening to the clock tick. Sometimes I would pick up my phone and scroll through photos. Ethan as a baby. Ethan at his last birthday. David and Emily smiling beside him. It hurt to look. But it hurt more not to. I did not see Ethan much after that night. At first, I thought David would bring him over often. But he was busy. Work. Life. Marriage. Weeks went by. Then months. Sometimes I called. "Hey, David," I would say, trying to sound cheerful. "How is my little man?" "He's good, Mom," he would answer. "Busy. Growing fast." "I miss him," I would say. "Yeah," he'd reply. "We'll try to come by soon." Soon often did not come. Once, I asked, "Is Emily angry with me?" He was quiet for a moment. "No," he said slowly. "Just, still a little hurt. She felt like you did not respect her as a mother. She felt pushed aside in her own home." I closed my eyes. "I never wanted that," I whispered. "I never wanted to take her place. She is his mother." "I know that." "I know, Mom," he replied. "But feelings are complicated." Yes. They were. I started writing in a small notebook. Not poetry. Not anything fancy. Just thoughts. Today I woke up and missed the sound of Ethan's little feet on the floor. Today I wondered if I will see my grandchildren grow up. Today I felt like a shadow in my own life. One day, my sister, Carol, came to visit. She sat at my kitchen table, stirring sugar into her tea. "You look tired," she said. "I am just getting old," I replied with a small smile. She shook her head. "It is more than that," she said. "You are sad." I looked down at my hands. "I do not know how to fix this," I said. "My son loves his wife. She does not want me there. I feel like I have to choose between needing help and losing them. And in the end, I lost both." Carol reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You are not the first mother this has happened to," she said gently. "Times are different now. People live their own lives. Boundaries, they call it." I nodded. "I understand boundaries," I said. "I respect them. But do boundaries have to feel like a wall?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Sometimes walls are built from fear, not from hate." That sentence stayed with me. Maybe Emily's wall was not built because she hated me. Maybe it was because she feared losing control of her life. Maybe it was because she feared being compared, criticized, overshadowed. I started to see things differently. I remembered the early days of my own marriage. How it felt when older relatives moved through my kitchen, rearranging things, giving advice I had not asked for. Maybe I had forgotten how that felt. I decided to do something I had not done yet. I decided to be honest. Not with anger. Not with blame. Just with truth. I took out a piece of paper and a pen and wrote a letter to Emily. I wrote slowly, carefully, with a steady hand. "Dear Emily. I hope you are well and that Ethan is doing okay. I miss you both. I wanted to write this because I do not know how to say these things out loud without crying. I am sorry for the ways I made you feel uncomfortable in your own home. I am sorry if I made you feel judged, or if I crossed lines I did not see. I was trying to help. I was also scared. Scared of losing our house, scared of your father's health, scared of being alone. That fear made me hold on too tightly to the only thing I have ever known how to do, taking care of people. But I understand now that sometimes helping can feel like controlling, even when that is not the intention. I want you to know that I respect you as Ethan's mother. You are his first protector, his first teacher, and his safe place. I never wanted to take that from you. The night you asked me to leave will stay with me for a long time. It hurt. I will not pretend it did not. But I do not want that night to be the last chapter of our story. If you ever feel ready, I would like to start again. Not as a rival. Not as a critic. But as another person who loves your son and wants what is best for him, and for you. Until then, I will give you space. I will not push. I just needed you to know how I feel, and that I am still here, quietly loving you all from a distance. With love. Margaret. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in an envelope, wrote their address, and mailed it. Days passed. Then weeks. I did not get an answer. At first, that hurt even more. But then I reminded myself, I did not write the letter to force a response. I wrote it to clear my own heart. To say what needed to be said. Little by little, I started to rebuild a life, even in my helplessness. I found a small support group at the local community center. It was for older adults dealing with loneliness and family distance. We sat in a circle in a plain room with fluorescent lights. There was a man who had not seen his daughter in 3 years. A woman whose son only called on holidays. Another woman who lived with her granddaughter but felt invisible in her own home. We shared stories. We listened. We cried sometimes. We laughed sometimes too. It made me feel less alone. Less like a failure. I also started walking slowly in the mornings, when my joints allowed it. I would move down the sidewalk, breathing in the cool air, listening to birds. I noticed small things. A child's chalk drawing on the pavement. A neighbor's dog sticking its nose through a fence. The way the sky changed color at sunrise. These small things did not fix everything. But they reminded me that life still had gentle moments, even when big things were broken. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I put on my glasses and looked closer. It was from Emily. Hi Margaret. This is Emily. I got your letter. Thank you for writing it. I'm sorry I haven't responded sooner. It's been a lot to process. My heart started beating faster. Another message came. I know that night was very hard on you. It was hard on me too. I was overwhelmed and scared and did not handle it well. I swallowed, my eyes blurring. I appreciate your apology, and I believe you when you say you were trying to help. I also need you to believe me when I say I felt like I was losing control of my home and my role as a mother. I'm not ready for big changes yet. But if you're okay with it, maybe we can start with something small. Would you like to see Ethan for a few hours this Saturday at the park? I covered my mouth with my hand as a small sound escaped my throat. I typed back slowly, careful not to push too much. Yes, I would like that very much. Thank you. That Saturday, I went to the park early. It was a simple place. A few benches. Some swings. A slide. Trees around the edges. I sat on a bench, hands folded in my lap, watching the families. Parents pushing swings. Children running in the grass. After a few minutes, I saw them. Emily, walking beside Ethan, who was holding her hand and swinging it happily. He saw me and let go of her hand, running toward me. Grandma, he shouted. I stood up, and as he threw his arms around my waist, I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Hey, my sweet boy, I whispered. Emily walked up, stopping a few feet away. Hello, Margaret, she said. Hello, Emily, I replied. We stood there for a moment, unsure of how to start. Then she said, "Thank you for coming." I thought, it might be good for Ethan. And maybe for us too. I nodded. Yes, I said. I think so too. We did not solve everything that day. We did not have a deep, emotional conversation. We watched Ethan play instead. We pushed him on the swing. We laughed when he went down the slide and landed on his feet with a big smile. But every now and then, I caught Emily looking at me with a different expression. Softer. Less guarded. Maybe, slowly, the walls were lowering. Life did not magically fix itself after that. I was still older. My body was still tired. Money was still tight. My house still needed repairs. My relationship with David and Emily was still fragile, like thin glass that could crack if we pressed too hard on it. But something inside me had changed. I no longer told myself I was worthless because I was helpless. I no longer believed that needing help made me a failure. I had spent my whole life being the strong one. The caregiver. The planner. And when I could no longer hold everything together, I realized something important. Sometimes strength is not about holding everyone else up. Sometimes strength is about standing up again after your own heart has been broken. My family did turn against me that night. Or at least, it felt that way. In one moment, I was a mother trying to help. In the next moment, I was a problem that needed to be removed. That feeling is one I would not wish on anyone. Standing in the doorway with your suitcase, hearing the echo of your own footsteps, knowing you are no longer welcome in the place you thought would always hold a space for you. But with time and quiet reflection, I also saw that my story was more complicated than that. Emily was not a monster. She was a young mother, overwhelmed and scared, trying to protect the little world she had built. David was not a cruel son. He was a man trapped between his wife and his mother, trying not to break either of our hearts, and failing anyway. I was not just a victim. I was a woman who had given so much that I did not know how to step back, how to be small, how to trust that I could still be loved even if I was not always needed. What I learned, slowly, painfully, gently, was this. Love changes shape over time. It does not always look like daily phone calls, shared houses, or holidays spent together. Sometimes, love looks like giving space. Sometimes, love looks like quiet forgiveness. Sometimes, love looks like sitting on a park bench, watching your grandson play, and choosing not to bring up old wounds. If you are listening to this and you feel helpless. If you feel like your family no longer sees you the way they once did. If you feel like you gave your whole life to others and ended up alone in a quiet house. I want you to know something from my heart. You are not worthless. You are not invisible. Your value was never just in what you could do for others. Your value is in who you are, the love you carry, the stories you hold, the lessons you have learned. Families are messy. People are flawed. We hurt one another, sometimes without meaning to. But as long as there is breath in your body, there is still a chance for new chapters. They might not look like the ones you imagined. They might be smaller, quieter, slower. A short visit at a park. A simple text message. A birthday card in the mail. These are not nothing. These are seeds. And if we water them with patience and kindness, sometimes they grow into something gentle and real. The night my family turned against me, I felt completely helpless. But today, when I look at my grandson's smile, when I share small, careful conversations with my daughter-in-law, when my son calls and says, "Mom, how are you feeling?" I realize I am not as helpless as I once believed. I cannot change the past. I cannot erase that night. But I can choose how I carry it. Not as a weapon. Not as a wound I press again and again. But as a lesson. A lesson about boundaries. A lesson about fear. A lesson about love that bends but does not completely break. So, if you are sitting alone right now, listening to my story, with tears in your eyes and a heavy heart, let me leave you with this. You did your best with what you knew at the time. They did their best with what they knew at the time. Sometimes, our best still hurts each other. But hurt is not the only ending available to us. There can be second chances. There can be smaller, softer versions of family. There can be peace, even if it comes slowly. I am Margaret. I am a mother, a grandmother, a wife. I am someone whose family turned against her for a night. But not forever. And even on the nights when I still feel helpless, I remind myself of one simple truth. As long as I can love, as long as I can forgive, as long as I can hope, I am never truly helpless.